Let's see, what halacha are we in? Parak, the first parak. Let's see this halacha over here. We talk about the time of doing Korban Pesach. Fine. We're going to be in the fifth halacha of the first parak over here. Hashochet es a Pesach. Okay? Right here on the screen. Someone who slaughters a Pesach bismano vayelo kazayit chametz birshuto. This is the one slaughtering the Pesach. By the way, the one who slaughters the Pesach, usually Kohanim had to know how to do this because the Kohanim are the ones conducting the service. But then again, any offering, except on Yom Kippur, the Chachila can be slaughtered by whom? Any Jew who knows how to slaughter. You don't have to be a Kohen to slaughter. You don't even have to be a man to slaughter. So anybody who slaughters the Pesach in its time, that means the afternoon of the 14th of Nisan, okay. And he had the smallest amount, kizayat. Someone asked this week, why is always kizayat? Like kizayat, because for all these prohibitions and required eatings, they never actually took out, a graduated cylinder and did an Archimedes type of experiment, put the substance into the graduated cylinder and see how much the water level rose, so you know the exact, threshold of prohibition, and say that an olive is 5 cc or whatever it was. They didn't do that. When they say kazayas, it's because, it's a meaningful amount. There you go. But it wasn't that they actually measured it. That's why there's always a cuff there. So he had a kazayas in his possession or under his domain. So okay. So he has to be lashed. Take it literally. Do not slaughter upon chametz. Al chametz means you have it around. So by the way, and this goes back to the last question. It says in Devarim, lo tochal alav chametz. Shivat yamin tochal alav matzot. For 7 days you shall eat upon it. Alav literally means upon it. Upon the Passover, you should eat matzah 7 days. The Passover is eaten one night. So what does it mean upon the Passover? Literally, upon the Passover, eat it for 7 days. Like it's a questioner just asked. What does that word upon mean? It means they translate biglal or bizchut, whatever it is. So because Passover is here, don't have chametz around in the house for all 7 days. The kedusha of Pesach, the Korbon Pesach, requires that even though the Passover offering is 1 day a year, and eating the Passover offering is 1 night a year, right? Very limited time. The prohibition of chametz kicks in for a whole 7 days, and so too the mitzvah to eat matzah then kicks in for 7 days because of the Passover, the Pesach. And even if the Pesach doesn't even happen, but the time for the Pesach happened, so you have this mitzvah. But the word indeed, alav, this preposition, this possessed preposition, is a little bit tricky. So it says lo tizbach al chametz dam zivchi. It means you shouldn't have chametz in your possession when you slaughter the blood of my feast offering. That means the Korbon Pesach. Shelo yizbach Pesach ve'chametz kayam. He should not slaughter the Passover ve'chametz kayam. Lizboach is a synonym for lishchot. Okay. Usually, lishchot means it's more literal, means a slice across the neck, usually to an animal for consumption purposes. That's lishchot. And sometimes it's even used, unfortunately, for people. It says, people were executed by the Babylonians. The verb there is also shchita. Whereas lizboach is usually a more ritual act. Okay? And it's related to the word mizbeach. And mizbeach is not called a mashchet or a mashchita. A mashchita is a slaughterhouse. A mizbeach is where they do ritual slaughter. And a zevach means an animal that's ritually slaughtered, as opposed to the korbanos that are not zvachim, they're not animals, menachos. Right? Fine. The chametz kayam, and the chametz is there. Echad hashochet, and then you say, wait a minute, you're talking about the guy who's doing the slaughtering. So if the guy who did the slaughtering owned chametz, so he's the one who takes the lashes. What about all the people for whom the Pesach is brought? All the owners of this animal. So Rambam says, echad hashochet ve'echad hazorek adam, whether it's the guy who's doing the slaughtering, who may or may not be a kohen, or may or may not even be related to the ritual. It could very well be that the kohen storing the blood and catching the blood is not related to this Korbon Pesach. He's not going to be eating from it. And this Korbon Pesach is on behalf of 50 men, none of whom know how to slaughter. So they have another guy who's unrelated to them conduct the act of slaughtering. So it says, whether the kohen throws the blood, or whichever the kohen who puts the emurin, those are the entrails, the forbidden fats, etc., that have to be burned on the mizbeach, he actually is the one who causes them. He burns them on the mizbeach. So all 3 men will be hit with the prohibition. That is, they'll be stand liable for being lashed. this case. Not just any of them. Any of these three men who perform the service, the slaughtering, the application of the blood, or burning the entrails, and any of the members of the chavura, the people who own the Korbon Pesach, for who the ones who are going to be eating it later that night. So those are all the ones. Any one of them owns chametz, because chametz b'shak rotohar izalokeh Pesach kasher. So any one of those men, or in this case it says the chavura, could be even women. Right? Any one of these people, they own the kazayis of chametz, so they ought to be lashed, but the Pesach is still kosher. It hasn't disqualified the korban. Well, so if they find out, if they're unwitting, so you can't get lashed for something you did unwitting. That's a shkaga. We're talking about someone who did it b'mezid. Whenever it says lokeh, it means b'mezid. He knew we had chametz before the fact, so now he stands liable to be lashed. Okay. Now, what does this bring up? Why the Rambam add the Pesach is kosher? Because you would have thought that he didn't do it like the pasuk said, "Lo tizbach chametz dam zivchi," and if you did do such a thing, so now you've disqualified the Pesach. Kamash Malan, it's not. You're going to see they bring their other opinions here. According to the Rambam, Mashma Shechiyu v'Malkus Hurak al Shochet. Rambam says the Shochet is the one who gets hit with the lashes. One of us, the 50 people who owned the Korbon Pesach, owned a kazayas of chametz. So the one who did the slaughtering gets lashed. Hazorik or a maktir. V'ilu b'dei chavru lo lokim im yesh b'shutan chametz. That's what the Chafetz Chaim points out, the way he reads the Rambam. And that's what the Tosfos is saying. And indeed, yes, technically speaking, one of the chavura owns chametz, kazayis of chametz, just to spite everybody. So the poor guy, the poor Kohen who did the slaughtering, the other Kohen who applied the blood, the other Kohen who was nice enough to put the entrails up on the Mizbeach, all those Kohanim will be lashed for what happened because they did a Maisa. Of course, they have to have known about this in order for it to be considered a Maisa. But if the Kohen doesn't trust that the man removed this chametz, isn't he best to stop him slaughtering his own korban? Yeah, that's what the Kohanim should do. They should make sure to announce to people, you certify that you don't have chametz. They even check. I would imagine that the Leviim who are admitting people to the Beis Hamikdash, ask people the basic question: have you purified yourself? Are you just like you go to like when you show up at the airport? Remember, you bring a bunch of 4 kids and your wife to the line at Ben Gurion, and you have like 5 suitcases, and they ask you, "Did you pack your own bags?" Just basic questions. They're just asking people. Sometimes they'll tell you the truth. I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Levim outside are asking people basic questions about Tuman Tara. And they ask, it says the Chagai Hanavi, I think it was it Chagai or is it Zachariah? I think it was Chagai, was told, go give the Kohanim a Tuman Tara quiz about Basar Kodesh. And it touches other things, like it passes on the tumor or whatever it is. It's machlokas what the exact question was, right? But he questioned them on these things. So yeah, Kohanim should, run this by people. Are you qualified to slaughter before giving the guy a knife to slaughter? There's a lot to make sure. Okay, let's see another opinion here. According to Sefer Mitzvahs, Mashma Shegam B'nei Achavura Sheish B'Rshus B'Chametz Lokin B'Chein Das Sefer Achino. The others say no. The B'nei Chavura, the ones who own the chametz, are the ones who are to receive the lashes. They're the ones who are mezidim. Well, and they say that this is even what Rambam believes. It wasn't action. Technically speaking, you should be asking, instead of asking in this case, what's the action? Doesn't the Torah say that you have to have the mitzvah of tashbisu, right? Bal yira, bal yimatzeh, and tashbisu. Tashbisu is an aseh. Get rid of the chametz. Bal yira, bal yimatzeh. Even without Korbon Pesach, right?
Also, if they have to dedicate someone to do so if they do that, I guess that itself is allocating the obligation to do someone else to do it for you. Yeah, because you're allocating that's a very good thing. That's another thing. But technically speaking, and if you do that, you're still not doing a ma'aseh. And ein shliach l'dvar avera. There's no such thing as allocating it. So whoever did it, whoever ended up doing the wrong thing, still is one who did the ma'aseh, and the one who sent him, the one who gave him the agency,
doesn't get put on the hook. Yeah.
Affected.
Yeah. So he should have the Maaseh in this case, but he didn't get rid of it. Or for whatever reason, this could be one of those passive things that you should still get. It's an exception to the rule. V'yeshes bir kach gametz das Rambam lefi shitas Rashi kasher yesh leechad mibnei achavur chametz kol bnei achavur over malei sur. If according to Rashi, one of the men in the group has chametz, so all of the group is punished. Everyone member of the group is punished for such thing because the Torah specifically said, "Bal yira, bal yimatzei, lo tizbach chametz dam zivchi," and tashbisu. So you have to know with whom you're dealing. Kind of scary, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So once again, this is hachriya because we're talking about after the fact punishment. I wonder what a future Sanhedrin would have to decide if Chas v'Shalom there was such a case was brought before them. Who would they lash? And that would be a machlokas. I would imagine that if they come before a Sanhedrin of 23 with this accusation, to Adam come and say, we saw that this guy slaughtered the Korbon Pesach on behalf of a group of 50, and two guys in the group had chametz. So are we going to lash the shochet? Are we going to lash those two guys? Are we going to lash everybody in the group?
Yeah.
And the Kohen. Yeah.
What we do, there's already a lot of people that are following this.
Oh yeah, and this thing, I look forward to this. Sometimes once you come back to doing the original mitzvah, you realize the falseness of what you're doing until this point. So the reinstitution of a sacrificial service will have the benefit, I believe, right away. People realize how terrible kaparos are. The people still do kaparos every year and remind people of this. The people who understand what korbanos are about and try to live it understand the gravity of why kaparos are so wrong. But the people most disconnected from Inyanei HaMikdash and korbanos and things like that don't study these things. They're like, yeah, a kapara. They understand that what they're doing is a sacrificial act, except they're changing around one word. And they're even taking the Ramban's description of what a korban is supposed to be, and they're transposing it onto this chicken that they're slaughtering in the courtyard. So it's terrible. And when the sacrificial service will be restored, God willing, people suddenly realize, oh, that's what it meant. Okay, I think that there are some more basic things. People don't understand what a proper intimate relationship is supposed to be like. And then they're married properly, and then they had children. They realize, oh, now I understand what God intended. But before that, they had no clue. So too, when the service comes back in this case, once we're doing korbanos, and there people understand the gravity of owning chametz, they'll realize that whole chametz sale thing with the fake sale, that ain't gonna fly. It was like also selling the land of Israel. There's some people they have a romantic idea of coming to the land of Israel and farming. How many people actually buy land here and actually work the land? Know what it's like? The minority. But you understand it. Once you invest in the land of Israel, some people buy apartments. Buying an apartment in Jerusalem, a 10-story apartment building, is not the same as actually keeping mitzvos atulios ba'aretz. Because for many people, those who are most into keeping mitzvos atulios ba'aretz, they're the ones who are strongest about holding on to the territory of Eretz Yisrael. Most people don't understand how important it is to hold on to the land because they live urban lives or they're totally detached from Eretz Yisrael. Yeah. So I encourage people do work the land. Keep the mitzvahs of lekachich and pear, the equivalent with fruit trees. Mm-hmm. Keep the commandments. Keep Shemitah. You'll understand what it's about.
There's a lot easier now to keep Shemitah than it was.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to keep Shemitah in the olden days.
20 years ago.
Remember, they came up with Heter Mechira, right? Because they were going to starve if they had kept Shemitah. That was a real problem because it was like, you have to keep Shemitah. Yeah, but we're going to die. It's like the Torah says that if we keep Shemitah properly, we'll have so much in the 6th year that we'll survive to the 8th. But we haven't had a 6th year yet. We don't have no crop. It doesn't work that way until we do this a few times. We have a whole tzibur supporting us to tell one moshav in the middle of nowhere with 10 farmers who were penniless and don't even have their families because they haven't really made it yet. They can't send to bring back their families from Vilna. So it's not gonna. It doesn't work that way. It wasn't meant to work that way, by the way. They were right. They shouldn't have been keeping Shemitah. Shemitah shouldn't have applied in that case, was Shemitah only applies once you have Am Yisrael on their land. And the basic says, now everybody's settled. Now we start the count. Oh, they forgot that. No, I'm saying that when we talked about this before, when the controversy first came in Maskeret Batya, when they started the first Moshavot, agricultural ones that tried to keep halacha in the late 1800s, and then suddenly the Rabban of Jerusalem said, "Oh, you're doing agriculture? Don't forget Shemitah," and they're told that you haven't done. There hasn't been a Shemitah. Shemitah is just a thing in the calendar, but it's not something that people have actually done. No one's farmed here before. Now you're telling us 3 years from now we'll have to keep Shemitah. We just started. How it would destroy everything. So the halacha really was like the Rambam says. The Shemitah only kicked in both times around in the first Commonwealth, the second Commonwealth, once everybody was already settled and there was stability, and then Beis Din said, now begin the count. So Yeshua and his Beis Din only started the first count towards Shemitah 14 years after they came to Eretz Yisrael, once they'd done conquering and dividing and establishing who owns what. So I'm saying, so it can't be that the Rabban of Jerusalem say, we are now telling you, by the way, Shemitah count has just been continuing. That what they're supposed to do is, once the Commonwealth restarts, that's when the Shemitah starts. I would have said they would have had a tour from Shemitah. My hypothesis was until the Balfour Declaration, until they established mandatory Palestine, which did have a sort of Jewish sort of autonomy, sort of Jewish governance or Rabbanut, or maybe until 48. And once the war was over and things were properly settled, then they say, now we're going to start the count anew, like the Rambam says they should have done. Okay, by the way, let's read on. The blood of the Passover needs to be spilled against the base of the altar. This is the most basic blood application. Sometimes we saw the blood has to be thrown in a particular place or applied. Right, but this is the easiest one. Just pour the blood right at the base. No fancy things. No 4 corners or 2 corners that are 4. Right, all the different types of blood applications. This is very very simple one. And after the blood is spilled, then the Korbon Pesach is what does it say here? The Korbon Pesach is skinned. By the way, it says here the Achronim have a diuk in the Rambam that they have to put the Korbon Pesach at the corners, towards the corners of the base of the altar, and not in the middle of it. Okay, kineged hayisod. Right, fine. And they say skin the korban. The korina bitno motziinet emurav. You cut open its beten, that's the belly, and you take out the entrails. Umaktirino tan chelvei kol zevach v'zevach levadam. And then you're supposed to take each sacrifice. Its kalavim, forbidden fats, are burned separately. That is, they have a sacred vessel, a big bowl to put the large piece of forbidden fat and the other portions that are to be burned on the altar. So you don't put one lamb's in this bowl with another lamb's entrails. Each lamb or each goat has its entrails in one bowl, and the Kohen walks up the ramp of the altar to the pyre, pyre, and the pyre of the fire, and he puts the entrails on that. Each one separate. Okay. Uvala zevach notel pischo im ha'or shelo. The owner of the korban, in this case, I guess the representative of the whole group who brought it to the courtyard, picks up his Passover in its skin. Okay, normally the skin is left around for the Kohanim, right? In this case, no. So he goes to his home in Jerusalem. By the way, maybe he's a pilgrim. So what's his home? It means wherever he's staying in Jerusalem. Vitzolehu, and then he roasts it and eats it. By the way, if he brings it home, he has a large group, so obviously he does it on behalf of the group. And they have special ovens for this, and he eats in the evening. Aminiach imurim, and you have maniach or maniach. According to the Rambam, it should be lahaniach. Haniach means give you rest. Lahaniach means to place. Well, sorry, it means being halacha zayin. Maniach or miniach? Okay, so the Rambam says that's the way you're supposed to say the bracha on tefillin. Lahaniach tefillin. Haniach, what? He only says there's one bracha on the hand, one bracha on both. He's like straight like the Bavli, not the Yerushalmi, not like Rabbeinu Tam, not like Minhag Eretz Yisrael. Rambam says he gives a whole essay. Why do I think it's but one mitzvah with one bracha? The other tradition is two mitzvahs, two brachas, right? So this is one of the first things I learned from Makbili personally is that the bracha for Shulchan Aruch is with haniach, as in ve'iniach Hashem lechemi koy vechemi saviv, on the shorish menucha. In that case, the hey and the mem are not part of the shoresh. The shoresh is nun vav chet from rest. But in this case, it's more like placement, not give it rest, but more like placing and then just leaving it stay. So the Rambam says there should be a dot in the nun because there's a missing yud at the beginning of the shoresh. Normally, yud at the beginning of the shoresh in these hifils, it would become a cholam, like hoshiv and hotzei and holech, right? But in this case, the yud or the vav fall off from the beginning, and you just get a dot in the nun. So that's a shoresh yud nun chet. So it should be hamoniach, but he says maniach, dot in the nun, and that's also the bracha on tefillin apparently. So he says he left over the amurin v'lo iktir ad shalanu v'nifsalu balina. And for whatever reason, it never got onto the altar until it was too late. Nifsalu balina. Overnight, it didn't get on. Hareza over below tase. So he has violated a thou shalt not. Shnemar v'lo yalin chelet chagi ad boker. Don't leave over the forbidden fat of my festival offering until the morning. Vav bishavar in oloke lefisha ein momase. And for whatever reason, the Kohen who didn't put this onto the fire is not hit with literally, he is not to be hit and punished because it was an act of omission, not an act of commission. Ein bomas means active omission, not commission. Okay. This is a halacha that only applies when Erev Pesach is Shabbos. Hold on a second. By the way, which is the rarest outcome according to our calendar. No, it does not. No, Pesach is Erev Pesach is on Monday this year. Rosh Chodesh will be Monday, Sunday night Monday. So, sorry, it was Monday night Tuesday. So Rosh Chodesh Nisan will be a Tuesday, and therefore so will Passover. The first day of Passover is a Tuesday. Erev Pesach is a Monday this year. Now, basically, roughly the breakdown is Passover is lo badu, so it falls out on odd days of the week: Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, Shabbos. Right, days 1, 3, 5, and 7. It roughly falls out on 3, 5, and 7, Tuesday, Thursday, or Shabbos, 2 out of 7 years. 2 out of 7 Tuesday, 2 out of 7 Thursday, 2 out of 7 Shabbos, roughly, and 1 out of 7 on Motzei Shabbos, which is Sunday. And the last time it happened was 3 years ago, and the time before that was 12 years. It was 13 years before that, and it's going to happen again next year, or something like that. So it's the rarest outcome, but there are a lot of halachas that particularly pertain to Erev Pesach on Shabbos. It complicates things. So what is it? The first thing is bir chametz. Normally Erev Pesach, burn the chametz, right? I don't know what you're signaling. Okay, Erev Pesach means you burn the chametz, right? And then you can't eat it, or then you got rid of it. When Erev Pesach is Shabbos, you can't. The time of disposal is the same, but your means of disposal are a lot more limited, right? And instead, you do ceremonial burning on Friday, even though you burn the chametz, and you might say halach ma'anya, but technically speaking, you shouldn't have. You know why? Because Friday night you're still going to have to eat some bread. Shabbos, lechem Mishne, and same thing. Shabbos morning, you're still going to eat some bread for your first suda, and then you're going to dispose whatever chametz you have left. Okay, so that's what people are. What people who have no experience with Korbon Pesach at least have experience with Passover. That's what you do when it's Erev Pesach is Shabbos. So this halacha says, hold on, another question came in. Yeah, not halach. Yeah. You bittul chametz, whatever it is. Is it a lachmania kol chamir? They're both Aramaic. You heard that? I said that. I said the declaration. There's a legal declaration. By the way, the Rambam says you don't say in Aramaic. I think he says you say it in Hebrew. Okay. Well, no, but the reason we have certain things in Aramaic is so that people understand what they're saying. It's a legal declaration. So kol chamira v'chamia, any leaven and any sourdough that I might have in my possession, right? So I said halach ma'anya instead of it. Halach ma'anya is a text from the Nagada describing the matzah, which God willing we won't say this year. Okay, check the Haggadah for why I said that. It's machlokas really. Okay, I read that one. There's some Kohanim on overnight duty. Imagine this. There's some Kohanim who have to stay in the base of Mikdash. They're eating Korbon Pesach, quickly. It's like the poor guys who get a job at the Pesach hotel as waiters. Some Pesach hotels have Jewish waiters. So what's the Jewish waiter doing while you're having Pesach Seder? What's he doing? He's supposed to be at the Seder also. Already this is mentioned in the Mishnah. There's a Shamish who's serving two different wine to two different Seders. And that's a whole problem. Whom is he going to eat his Korban Pesach? Okay, fine. There's someone there. So they're Kohanim who are serving God. And they're Korban Pesach, unfortunately, they're on duty overnight in the temple. So they have to finish up their Seder a little bit earlier or a little bit later, whatever it is. Like the poor soldier who's has a shift, whatever it was. Right? So they have to continue burning the hector chalavim, right? And avarim. No, there's no avarim of Korban Pesach. Chalavim. There's a lot of korbanos that need to get onto the fire. So there's a lot of these ceremonial bowls with the entrails. Basically, they have to do it all night long. Yeah, they have, just like there's some busy days in the temple where they continue burning pieces of the korbanos all night, or at least well into the night. So technically speaking, it says you continue doing this into the night. The incoming night is Yontif. The previous day was technically Shabbos. So the entrails left over from the service of the Korban Pesach that afternoon were Shabbos. They had the Kedusha of Shabbos. So they can continue being offered on the night of Yontif. Because Shabbos is holier than Yontif. But if the 14th of Nisan was just a regular weekday, and it's not going into Shabbos, then the 14th of Nisan is less holy than the subsequent Yontif. So you can't have a night shift. Just like a Friday night, what is it? Normal nights, weeknights, the Kohanim might be doing Hektar Chalavim well into the night. But Shabbos, and also for Shabbos, but Friday, if there's a lot of korbanos on Friday, they have to make sure to burn everything before Shabbos starts, because they can't do Hektar Chalavim on Leil Shabbos, because Leil Shabbos is holier than whatever came before it. In this case, whatever comes after Shabbos is of lesser holiness than Shabbos, so of course what was left over can be burned. Okay, so this is halacha that comes up also in Hilchos Tamidim and Musafim. Yeah.
Yeah. I always wondered why they had this very large ramp going up to the sequence. Yeah, you can always see on the pictures, like a single one or two plenty and going up. I'm sure they had dozens of people.
Yes, some days it was quite busy. Some days it was very busy. That's why the Mizbeach was so large.
It's got to be very heavy with all this, like bowls.
No, we're talking about a lamb that's quite small. The lamb used for Korban Pesach, a guy like you could easily just put on his shoulders. Okay?
Like a lamb.
Yeah, so that's what we're talking about. So its entrails are just a small part of it. It fits in a normal size bowl. It's not like a gigantic cauldron. They when they had, let's say, a bowl to offer, we saw that they divided up, bringing up the different parts of the Mizbeach among many Kohanim. Okay, they didn't make it hard on them. So I wanted to point out that the fact that when Shabbos is Erev Pesach is so far the rarest outcome according to our calendar. Okay, it's not on purpose. Lo Adu Rosh was and will be implemented even when the months were decided by the Sanhedrin. That is, the precedent we have of Lo Adu Rosh. Chazal didn't want Rosh Hashanah to be certain days of the week. They didn't want it to be Sunday, Wednesday, or Friday. So they were already conspiring and using certain gimmicks to make sure it wouldn't happen, right? Planning well in advance beforehand, because every month could be delayed by a day or advanced by a day, basically. Within a day, that's considered new moon. And sometimes it just would intimidate the witnesses. If the witnesses were coming and basically saying, we just saw the new moon, and it's going to result in Rosh Hashanah on a Wednesday, they would just maybe refuse to accept their testimony or make it so hard on them to testify so that Rosh Hashanah would be Thursday. Fine, we pushed it off by a day. Not a biggie. So that's what they used to do in Chazal's times. So Lo Adu Rosh, apparently saying that Chazal wanted even before the perfectly set calendar that we have now, and will continue to be implemented when we go back to the old method. But Lo Badu Pesach, which is connected to that, Lo Badu Pesach assumes that there's a set amount of days from
the beginning of Nisan, or even the beginning of the Adar before Nisan, until the end of Tishrei. Why? Because all the months in that time have a set length. The Adar before Nisan is always 29 days long. Nisan's always 30 days long. ER is always 29. Sivan's always 30, and so forth until we get to Mar Cheshvan. Because that's the case, you know that if Rosh Hashanah will be a certain day of the week, then Pesach was 2 days in the week before that. That's the rule. So Lo Badu Pesach is not something that Chazal were shooting for. Someone asked a question. Hold on. No, I don't think they'll force them to do such a thing, because when they declare today is Rosh Hashanah, they're not going to do a 2-day Rosh Hashanah in the future. Why? Because when they're waiting for the witnesses to come, and everybody knows that a lot of people saw the new moon tonight as the 29th of Elul was ending, people saw it, and it's a perfectly good Monday for Rosh Hashanah. Nothing's the problem. They won't do it. But there will be this idea that Misafek will have to start keeping it. When the 29th day of Elul ends, we will start pretending it's Rosh Hashanah, because witnesses might come and show up and declare it like they used to. And then if the witnesses, for whatever reason, don't show up, then automatically the next day will be the actual Rosh Hashanah. That's what the precedent was. That's what we'll do. My point is, Lo Badu Pesach is just a coincidence. It's a consequence of Lo Adu Rosh and the fact that we keep the months with set lengths in between Nisan and Rosh Hashanah. But it wasn't something they're going for. It's just a consequence of Lo Adu Rosh and the fixed lengths of the months, which means that there's no preference in Chazal for a particular day of the week or particular day of the weeks to be Passover or a particular day of the weeks not to be. Rosh Hashanah, they don't want 3 days of the week. That's true. But they don't care what day Passover is of the week. It just happens to be Lo Badu Pesach. It's a coincidence, which means that in the future, even though Chazal in the future, we mentioned last week, that whatever Rebbe's running the show in the future, they will still want to keep Lo Adu Rosh, but because the intervening months before Rosh Hashanah could have fluctuating lengths, there will be no Lo Badu Pesach, and a future Passover will be, I guess, an equal opportunity offender with all the days of the week. Passover will be all the days of the week, and no day will be favored over the others, which means that the Passover on Erev Shabbos will become just as frequent as the other days. But this doesn't mean it'll be more frequent than it is now. I said already, on average, it's about 1 out of every 7 years. And the other days of the week each have about twice the odds. So Tuesday, 2 sevens, Thursday, 2 sevens or so, Shabbos, 2 sevens is actually a little bit off. It's around there. That's a ballpark estimate. It just means that instead of Sunday becoming more frequent the first day of Passover, it'll be less frequent on Tuesday. Instead, it'll be 1/7 on Sunday, 1/7 on Monday, 1/7 on Tuesday, so forth. Basically, each day of the week will have an equal opportunity, but it won't increase Sunday's share of the Passovers. Yeah, do the math. I did the math like for 5 days, and that's the way it comes out. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, so this is an interesting halacha. The Kohanim have to know this. Do the Kohanim basically work the night shift on Leil Pesach, burning what's left over? And the answer is, if Erev Pesach was Shabbos, yes, because that what they're doing is left over from Shabbos, which is a holier day than the night of Yontif. But if it's any other day of the week, Kal v'chomer, if it's a Friday, then they can't, because the day in which they would be doing the burning is holier than the day on which the pieces that are left over are now to be offered. Wow. Okay, I think let's do one more halacha, because we had an interruption before and we have like a minute left. Despite all these people trying to call me. Okay. HaPesach nishchat b'shalosh kitot. 3 groups. Nemar v'shachatu otho kol kahal adat Yisrael. It should be slaughtered by kol kahal adat Yisrael. I don't know why he put in a vav in the word kol. That shouldn't be. Kahal ve'edav Yisrael. See? Kahal adat Yisrael. 3 groups. Ve'en pachot mishloshim b'nei adam b'chol kat v'kat. And each group can't be less than 30 people. That's also how they derive that. Hayu kol chamishim. Let's say only 50 people bring Korbon Pesach. Yes, that could be the situation. Only 50 people have done it. That obviously there's a precedent for this. Persecutions, or only 50 people show up to the Temple Mount. Like in years past, we tried to do Korbon Pesach. How many people were really committed and went the whole 9 yards to get ready for Korbon Pesach in previous years and had a lamb who were ready? About 50 or so, and they returned back. So what do?
You put in Nichnasim Batchila Shloshim, let 30 in, Vishochatin, Vyotzin Asara, 10 are allowed to leave. Bring in another 10. Now it's a different 30, even though 2/3 are ones who are already there. V'chozrin v'yotzin asara v'nichnasin asara. And then let another 10 out. Now basically there are 10 people who are going to be on average in all, with all three groups. They're the tzaddikim. If you can't even get 50 people, you shouldn't do the Korbon Pesach. But after the fact, look, okay, if that's all you have, look, if there are only 30 people do show up to do Korbon Pesach, that's all they got. Slip them all, do it at once. It's still kosher. Okay, let's close with the prayer. Well, why 30 people? I think there's a drasha that tells them that. Yeah, I could look it up. I forgot here. So yeah, and they used to call them the Yatzlanim. The Rambam is going to bring that. He says he explains it elsewhere. It's in the Mishne. They call them usually the last group was the lazy people for whatever reason. What are they supposed to do? Someone's got to be last. And it's at least 50 people, the way you're saying L'chachila. 50 representatives. By the way, where do they get this number? Can you imagine? Maybe there were times there were only 50 Korbon Pesachs per group, 150 Korbon Pesach. How many people does that feed? The Gemara has a case. Agrippus the second apparently wanted to know how many people showed up for Korbon Pesach that year. So we had them count kidneys. It ended up being millions of people. Okay, yeah. Sometimes you get crowds, sometimes you don't. Elkanah's days, right? He had to encourage people to go al the other regel. It was a mitzvah yisoma at the time. So this happens. Oh, we got a question or a statement. The Eidah is 10 people, yeah. But how you get to 30? It says kahal, you have to have 3 groups, so it should be 3 groups of 10. So 30, but now then it says all 3 groups combined should be 30 then. I should look it up. Oy, forgetting my things. So if we had a better Rambam here, we'll look at. Either way, we should close with a prayer. We should all merit to see the reinstitution of the sacrificial service, the rebuilding of the temple, the destruction of Israel's enemies, the healing of all of Israel's mentally ill who would help their enemies. And you should have a Shabbat Shalom. Be well.
We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. If you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.